Welcome back to the tour studio here at Burlington Country Club. This will be lesson number 8, and you could also call it 7A because we're still talking transition. I wanted to give you a perspective of what it looks like from the face-on position. That's typically how I would teach it from this position. When I show my students videos, it would be basically from this position, okay? So, as you learned in the last lesson, transition is sliding your hips a little bit, and I emphasize a little bit. We don't want to be up here and then slide them that much. That's too much, okay? They should slide, I'm going to say anywhere from 2 to 4 inches maximum, okay? But it's extremely important you slide your hips. That's what transfers your weight. That's what begins to shallow the shaft. And as we discussed in the last session, you also have to, in the beginning, forcefully shallow the shaft. The problem with making change in the golf swing, and downswing changes are the most difficult because they happen so quickly, is you must over-exaggerate them. We have a saying in teaching golf that what feels like a foot is an inch, and I find that true in 99% of the lessons I give. So for you to truly shallow your shaft, yes, the hip slide will help do that, okay? But for those of you who swing over the top, you'll have to physically try to feel like the shaft shallows. Again, shallowing the shaft is, as it comes down, it falls that way. A good exercise you can do is you can take the club, stand it up, slide your hips forward, and as you slide your hips forward, lay it down. I call it to stand it up, lay it down. It's just a matter of changing your pattern. The reason people can't make these changes at times is because they don't practice enough of changing the pattern. You don't have to hit a ball to change the pattern. You just gotta get up there like this, push hips, shallow the shaft. Now I'm exaggerating this. If we shallowed it that much, we'd be the person that hits the pushes and the overhooks. Okay, so, but for those of you who swing across the ball or over the top, you can exaggerate as much as you want. You won't get under the plane. You don't have to worry about that, okay? So now, transition from face on, okay? I think you get a better perspective of hip slide from there, okay? So again, back to our backswing that we learned in our last series, is to the top. First move down, bump the hips, just a little bump. See how your weight's going left, okay? And then as you do that, shallow the shaft, shallow the shaft, okay? So it gives you different perspective from this angle. You can see how much my hips are sliding, okay? And remember, I emphasized in the last one, and I'll emphasize it again, and you might even hear me say it again. It's important that you do this before the club comes down. This isn't effective, okay? It just isn't. Okay, you lose power, and you won't shallow the shaft that way. Anytime the upper body initiates the downswing, 9 times out of 10, shaft's going to come down too steep, okay? So, again, up to the top, bump the hips, shallow the shaft. That's transition. Bump the hips, shallow the shaft. Okay? So that's going to conclude transition. Okay? In lesson number 9, I'm going to get into the rest of the downswing. We'll talk a little bit about path. Okay? And then we'll get into the through swing, which I personally feel is the most important part of the golf swing, and I'll explain why when we get there. So again, thanks for being with us. See you next time.